if you're from Baltimore, you may know my voice from YPR and TMD hosting interview shows, and now I'm a regular contributor to Midday with Dan Rodricks, and on the editorial board of Baltimore Sun.
Oh, okay.
And I just started as a
you're
columnist on 21, the Loop 21, which is a black academics kind of blog site. So I just started. So yes,
you've got a lot going on. Sounds like.
Right, and for the historians, my brother James Parks was one of the new black editors of the 80s. He doubled the circulation of the Pittsburgh Courier, but now he does PR for the AFL-CIO.
Ah.
So we've been in and around.
That's where a lot of people in the journalism are
right. We've been in and around journalism for a while.
That's great.
And the book, I think, that Dr. McAdams was referring to, I had a book that came out in March, which is really traces the sacred dark feminine from ancient creation stories into present popular day culture. And so it talks a lot about advertising, some of the images you've got up there.
Okay, well, I kind of tried to, wait a minute, this was not your list.
Okay, I was thinking I can work with this, but it's...
Yeah, no, here, this is your list.
Okay,
and
great.
I don't know which ones you would like me to, I will play whatever you want me to play.
Well, let's see what we got.
Some are just articles,
Jemima,
because I couldn't find
the actual ad. Okay.
I couldn't find the
the
Gladys Knight Coke ad. I only found, or which do
we have the
Pepsi ad?
Max ad?
The Pepsi what?
Max ad.
Yes.
But I'll use the
yes, right there
first.
from the Super Bowl. That one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll work with what we've got.
Okay.
I can tap
You know what? Let me close this door because I don't want to disturb anybody else out in the hallway. And you can feel free to sit.
Well, I mean, if you would like to sit, I can stand so I can see the list.
Okay. We are. No, that you want to use that. Okay. Because we're going to record this for possible use at the next class.
Okay. Well, so you need me to be in a certain spot.
Yeah, let's see, Laura. Is it better if she stands in a certain spot?
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Little so that
okay, well, I just want to stand where I can see the board, and I just want this out of the way visually.
Okay.
And I was in radio, TV, film department here first before it got eliminated, so I guess I should say that too. Let me talk, and I really do need to go at 2 because Patrick Gazanka, which actually who was an undergrad in journalism here and went on to be a grad student in American Studies, his father's passed. So
sorry to hear that.
So, long gone for the younger ones of you.
Okay, well, we're happy to have you for however much time you can give us.
All right, so if somebody will let me know when it's 2 o'clock, so right now, that would be great. Okay, let me talk first about who African Americans are as consumers and who they are as both style leaders and the focus of the images. And when I walked in, you were talking about brand loyalty, and African Americans are an exception to what is beginning to develop around brand loyalty. African Americans are very brand loyal, have been for a very long time, and young African Americans continue to do that. You can see that in terms of hip hop when they actually mention certain brands. That is not a new development, that's simply a manifestation of it in hip hop. Very consistent in terms of what they buy, the certain products they buy. For instance, African Americans have kept the hat industry in business for generations. And when I mean hats, I mean fancy lady hats, fancy fedoras for men. So there are certain products that have stayed afloat primarily because of African American consumers. Certain brands as well. I mean, some of the things that you see, that you hear in hip hop are actually true. African Americans do disproportionately buy Jack Daniels, for instance. I mean, those things don't just pop out of nowhere, and that's been true for a long time. There's a reason for this, and it's really important to understand. And when you're understanding the relationship between what ads are supposed to do and whether they do them or not, so African Americans are a culture, a style culture. African American women, middle class African American women, are basically recession proof. If they like your product, if they're buying your product already, they will drop other things, but they'll stay with your product. And it usually is around a certain product. For instance, and it may be in some unusual places, in my mother's family, she was a whisk detergent woman. And no matter what happened, whisk, and notice whisk at the time was if there's such a thing as a highbrow detergent, whisk was. It was more expensive, it worked better. You know, the ad talked about ring around the collar. It was one of the ones that worked around ring around the collar. And so that was really important to her. And this will sound bizarre, but you may have stories like this in your family. As whisk began to fade and other detergents came on the market, my sister and I had separately in our own household stopped using whisk and started using something else. When my mother found out, she was upset. There actually was a conversation about detergent and whisk. And eventually she tried something else, and then she acquiesced that there was something. That kind of brand loyalty is very unusual. What I have noticed in my own African American family, I'm married to an African American man, we have an African American daughter who's 15 and pretty brand loyal herself. That is not detergent so much, it's paper products. That if I move away from Charmin Soft, there's a comment at my house. You know, well, this isn't what we usually get. And, you know, early on in my family's life, my daughter, I found out, knew the words to ply. And the same with paper towels. They're a little more lenient, but it has to be either Bounty or Brawny. I mean, if I do something cheaper, if I drop down, then there's a comment. Now, note what happens in non-African American families when times get bad is that they'll switch over to the store brand. African Americans will do the same thing, except for whatever products the family culture has deemed to be really important. One of the types of research I do is also family ethnography, how families weave in popular culture into the fabric of their family life. So you'll hear a little bit of that going on too. When I say African Americans are a style culture, style is very important. When I'm going to give you an anecdote that I think helps you understand. When I was a new graduate student at UMass Amherst, the chair of the department came to me and said he was worried about me. And I said, why? I seem to be doing pretty well. And he said, actually, you're doing really well. You're a blue chipper. But we're worried about your socialization. And it took a while to kind of weed this out. But what he said was, you look like you're sleeping and you're too well dressed. I was a graduate student, so I wasn't well dressed by my standard, but my clothes were ironed and they matched. And he was trying to suggest that the aesthetic of an academic was to be dumpier than that. And so they were worried. And what I said to him is that I'm the daughter of 2 school teachers. And so I said, if my mom in North Carolina hears that my clothes don't match and I'm a black middle-class woman from the South, this is the uniform. This is what I have to do. And it's interesting because it's changed a little as I moved around, but that's what a style culture is. If you go to Howard today, I'm not dressed well enough, actually. You're dressed fine to teach at Howard.
I got a meeting downtown.
Right, but exactly. At Howard, the professors are wearing suits, and the students are pretty dressed up too. That's what a style culture is, and there's a type of recognition.
Is it a sense of upholding a standard?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And the other recession-proof style culture is middle-class gay white men.
What?
The other recession-proof consumer group is middle and upper-class gay white men.
When you say they're recession-proof, what do you mean?
During the recession, the one that hopefully we're pulling out of now, people change their consumer behavior. It's reasonable to change your consumer behavior, to stop buying things. If you know anybody who has a business right now and something that is not a necessity, you know that they're worried. My daughter is an equestrian. She's a competitive rider. Tack shops have been going out of business, and pretty fast. Now we're kind of we have to drive this way to get some tack, because they're just going out of business because people don't have to ride. She feels she has to, but most people don't feel that they have to. That sort of thing. During a recession, people will change their consumer behavior. There are some groups who will change their behavior except in certain ways. Black women will not stop getting their hair done. And notice during the recession, and the same is true for other cosmetics, Go into a department store and you'll see, or in a drugstore now, which used not to be the case,